Hi everyone, I'm hoping not to be before you long. This is a testimony video that I was supposed to put out a long time ago, but I feel led to now, and I kind of have more of the strength right now, and yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. Honestly, I'm not. This is hard because I want to do this video and I want to be obedient, but just the thought of recapping the last 2 years, which is exactly what God wants me to do, is like, so yeah, here goes. So September 2022, I had just moved into a new apartment, and this move was kind of heavy because I was moving out of an apartment with someone who I had considered a friend at the time, and there was so much that happened before I moved again, and God had just been so intentional with me, and so he just did a lot of really big moves in my life, and he told me that he was going to move me into an apartment. So this was coming off of me believing that I was going to be living in an apartment on my own. And yeah, I thought I was going to be living in an apartment on my own in the Bronx, and I was having like big, huge, crazy faith for it, and that did not happen. And I, through a lot of events I'm not going to get into now, but it was a lot. It really was a lot before I moved into this apartment. And I moved, and God had provided me with a way to move in with someone who I kind of I met at like an art event, and I didn't take God's hint to move in with that person, and have that be my roommate. And because I didn't take his window, I ended up going through a multitude of events through this crazy wilderness that I won't get into, but basically I was hopping from spot to spot, just trying to get my footing. I put my things in storage, and I was also staying with someone temporarily who I thought was a friend, and it was just, people were starting to show true colors in those times when I was most vulnerable, and I really needed a place to kind of gather myself and marshal my resources and use what I had. And I'd saved up so much money in order to move and establish this new place that I was believing in God for. And during that time of transitioning and not following the opening that God gave me, money was just draining from my account, like left and right. Every day some new expense was coming through, whether it was coming through the moving, the rental truck, or storage, or just things coming out of the woodworks. And the person who I thought was a friend, and just, oh my gosh, when I think about, I don't even want to tell you because I had saved up so much, and then it was like basically gone. And so by the grace of God, and him using my dad to help me get myself situated, I moved into this new apartment in September 2022. And so it felt like kind of being able to settle, and not be moving from place to place. But hold on, just hold on, because things just start happening. So anyway, so I was still working at this job that I had before I moved, this nonprofit, my first job in nonprofit that God had blessed me with. And more and more I started to see just, there was so much spiritual warfare happening there that more and more I just started to see people's hearts for me. There was a lot of like public humiliation happening towards me, like just almost like these public humiliation rituals happening towards me, and just a lot of warfare while I was working there. And at first it was good. I was learning a lot of things, and I know that I was placed there for a reason, to learn what I'm using now for my own business. And that was such a blessing when I first got that job, and just the way that God even blessed me with that job was amazing. But you know they say there's a back end to the blessing, and I was definitely feeling the back end of it towards the end of my having that job. And basically, like, I could feel that it was time to leave, like the grace had run out at that place. So I was looking for places to leave, and I was clashing with my manager at the time. And there was a lot of things working behind the scenes that I didn't realize, like people working behind the scenes to negatively affect my time there as well, negatively affect my role there. Just a lot of things that some of it I knew about, and some of it I had no idea. So there was just a lot of warfare there. And going into, let's say, the holidays, like I would say November to December, things just started picking up. Like at my job, it was rough. Like just warfare happening at my job. Just people attacking me for no reason. Like just a lot. And then I would come home, and then the spiritual warfare would be at home. So at the place where I was staying, I was living in a 4-bedroom apartment with 3 other people as roommates, all worldly. And I've lived with people who don't believe in God before, and that was an experience. But this was on a whole other level. It was like, when I look back at it, I know that God was preparing me for my new season. But at the time, there was so much pressure happening. It was like I had no place where I could really rest, where there was peace. Peace was like outside of all the places, outside of work, outside of home, outside of even my art studio that I was renting. There was just like no peace there either. Oh my gosh, when I think about it, it was just the only way that I got through all of that was God. Because I went through like a whole year of being crushed from both sides, from all sides. And so I ended up going, so for the holidays, where am I going? Okay, let me backtrack. So prior to this year, prior to moving and everything, God had been doing such a huge work in my family. And he had me like going back to my home state in Georgia to travel a lot, to go see my family, to sit with them, to just be there. And I hear the word anchor. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So there was a lot of things happening that God was doing inside of my family. But during that year in 2022, I ended up spending the holidays with a friend, with my best friend at the time. And So, I had just come back from spending the holidays with her for Thanksgiving, I believe. And so I went um, back to visit her down south in North Carolina. And so um, I ended up staying longer than I usually would. So I went back for Christmas. I ended up staying a bit longer than I usually would, and staying for New Year's. And that was when God started to show me the reality of my relationship with my friend. And this is someone who I had been friends with for, since I moved to New York, so like almost 20 years. And, my longest friendship. And it was just really eye opening to see when God reveals people's hearts for you, and what's, things that are actually going on with someone. There were a lot of things that she was dealing with that she had not shared with me at all. And he showed me that we were at a point where he had been trying to separate us. He had been trying, like, our relationship was not supposed to continue for this long. And I kept holding on to the relationship and not realizing how much it was not, I hate to use the word benefit, but it just wasn't benefiting me at all. And it was so funny the way that it ended. I remember like a day or two before talking to my friend, and her telling me, I will never leave you. I will, always be here. And then 2 days right after that, breaking off our friendship. And when she broke it off, we had taken a walk, and I could kind of tell, like, there was so much tension between us, and I could kind of tell that something was going on, or something big was going to happen behind the conversation. And then when she spoke, basically, like, she decided to end our friendship. And I said, okay. And I could feel this release, and I could feel the Holy Spirit. I felt this peace. And even when I was asking her certain questions about, like, other relationships she's had in her life that she's, had with family, or other people, where she didn't let them go as easily, where she kind of fought for the relationship. And she was kind of, I saw her start to get very angry, and kind of start to yell, and making excuses for everyone else in her life except for me. And then I realized, like, it was like God was just showing me, even though you're pouring into this person, oh my gosh. And I just think about how many times I've, like, helped or done things and placed myself in relationships and situations that I didn't need to be in for someone else. If you've ever been there, like, just giving and pouring out of yourself into someone else, and that person was never sent to you by God, or never called to you, or they were sent to you by God, but it was only for a season, and you held on, you remained in the relationship longer than God intended. And when I look back on it, and I think of how long it was, and how much, like, I was idolizing the relationship, and I didn't even realize. And when he removed that, it was like this wool was pulled from my eyes, and I could fully see, like I was seeing clearly for the first time. And that was the start of, that was like right after New Year's, so January 2023. And it was such I could feel it was an entirely new beginning, um, and it felt remarkable. There were things that the Holy Spirit was like speaking to me and showing me and revealing to me, and I had these new perception. I had this new lens to see what He was showing me, and I was able to receive it. And um, things just started moving quickly. I remember like that same day, while I was in North Carolina, I was interviewing for a job in New York, and I could tell like God has taken me through this before, so I could tell what He brings to me and what He doesn't. And I could tell that the job was mine, even though they were going to have me do like 2 or 3 more interviews. It was a long process, but I did end up receiving that job. So I ended my the current job I had at the nonprofit, and started a new job at a new nonprofit in New York. And okay, so fast forward to February 2023. A lot of things happened. There were um, the beginning of that job was just a it feels like chaotic. If I could think of a word for it, it was just very chaotic. There were births, there were deaths that just around me happening. There was just a lot. Even in like the first 3 months, felt like I had already been there for 2 years, which is, I know it sounds crazy, but after I guess they don't want us to say the word, but whatever, I'll put it in the caption. But after that time, like, time just seems so different to me now. And so even though at the new job that I received, I was only there for 5 months, it felt like I had been there for 3 years, which is crazy. But so much happened in that time. So from February to July, there was so much that happened. My grandmother passed away that May. I was in a community arts group that there was also a lot of warfare there, just a lot of unnecessary stress, and just coming my way. And I was thankful for that opportunity, but at the same time, it was just, the warfare was just unreal. And the main source of the warfare at that time, even with me still living at the place that I was living at, and there being warfare amongst, there was just a lot of spirits in that apartment, and amongst my roommates. And the main source of the warfare was from work. So, oh my gosh, like, spirit of Jezebel, spirit of Leviathan, I mean, it was just insane. Like, the kind of things that were happening. It was like the minute that I could kind of see, even from the interview and what the Holy Spirit was sharing with me, that there was going to be a tussle. There was going to be some things happening, because I could kind of see that my manager was trying to hide certain things from me, but I could see that there was a lot, and things just felt, I couldn't help but see everything that she was trying to hide. So I could see that there was a lot of they were having trouble retaining employees, that there was a lot of racism at that job. And I mean, there was the structure and the hierarchy, and the work, like, dynamics with the work relationships, and just a healthy work environment were just not there. And it seemed like there were a lot of things that they were trying to do to make it there, but all of that was coming from the some of the employees that didn't have power, and the people that were in power wanted things to stay the way that they were, and they were quite happy with the way things were. Yeah, there was a lot of blindness there to people that were just willfully blind to what others around them were experiencing, and or yeah, it was a lot. And I was catching it, like, I mean, left and right. There were just a lot of sabotage and things happening at that job towards me. I mean, I was working there, doing payroll, but I was also working as, still working as an artist. So, you know, outside of that time, I was going, when it, after the end of my shift, I was still going to my studio and working there, and, you know, working on the community project I had, and, you know, the other things that God had placed me on my plate, and, you know, things to work on. And there was just like, oh my gosh, I just don't really remember much times of peace outside of, you know, traveling to Philly for my grandmother's homegoing service, and seeing God move in my family, seeing the incredible work of God move in my family to knit them back together, to repair relationships, to reconnect family and family relationships, and just doing a work. And, you know, outside of seeing his hand move and protect me from a lot of the attacks that were coming my way at work, or at home, or at the art studio where I worked, and just seeing his incredible hand move. And, you know, the most peace that I felt were the times, like the walks that I used to have with him. I started doing a lot more prayer walks with God, and just a lot more alone time with him. And I remember during that time I was reading a lot of Psalms, but I was also studying the book of John, and just learning how Jesus responded to the Pharisees, and just, you know, scoffers and mockers and people who were not for him, and just different attacks that were coming his way, and how he would just get alone with God right after sermons, or right after large events that would happen. And, you know, I started mimicking that. I started, you know, learning how to do that. And oh my God, the only way I came through all that was because of God. And, you know, just pressure everywhere. He was somehow, when I was coming towards the end of my time at those places, the end of my time at the workplace, the end of my time at the apartment, the end of my time at the art studio, there was a peace that came over me, indescribable. I know it says in the word it's indescribable, but it literally was indescribable. Like, that I could sit in that stormy, you know, environment and still have peace. Like, it boggles my mind that, you know, at the apartment, you know, there were cats there, and I love cats, but there was one that was so clearly incredibly uncomfortable, and she would pee on the floor, and pee and poop on the floor, and she wasn't, you know, doing that before they moved this other cat in. And there was just a lot happening there. It was like the warfare was just turned up there. I had to lock my door because I started realizing, you know, people would come in my room. And at one time after the holidays, I came home, and there was like cat poop all over my shoes that clearly someone had dumped like a week's worth of cat poop all over my shoes that I left outside my door. And, so you could imagine what someone would do if they were in my room. And of course, everyone denied that they did it. They literally blamed it on the cat, which is insane. But yeah, it was just a lot of warfare. Just such, just the word vibe, like the vibe in the entire place was like awful. I couldn't, it was just weird to be living with people that didn't believe in God, that didn't have a relationship with God, um, who could sit in the environment the way that it was. It was like they were comfortable with awfulness, and you could feel it. There were so many different spirits like permeating through that house. And one conversation with the roommates, like earlier when I first moved in, they were kind of sharing with me how many different roommates had lived there and what they brought with them. Some of them like drug addiction, some of them like prostitution, some of them like drug dealing, some of like so many different things. And I was like, God was revealing to me like all of the spirits that had been allowed to come up and permeate that house. And that's where I was staying. And so imagine like for a year, like battling all of those things that were just like rampant, running rampant through the household, and just like rampant through the roommates, through 3 different people. And so, I mean, my prayer game was like, I was praying over everything. I was like covering the blood, pleading the blood of Jesus over everything. So just imagine for an entire year having to cover your household, your workplace, and a third place, your studio, and yourself and your family, standing, praying in the gap for your family, and standing for your marriage. I was going through a season of separation from the person who God has ordained to be my husband. And so I was standing for that promise and standing for that person and praying over that person as well. All of that, just imagine going through all of that while you're mourning the death of your grandmother, like, which is a whole other story in itself. Just the grace of God. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. Because when I think about it, like, no wonder I was like ambivalent to do this video, because I'm like, oh my God, I have to go back there. But he's so sovereign, and it's not like, I mean, he's still healing me from all of the trauma and everything that I experienced. So he's done a lot of work for me, even to like sit here and talk about it in the manner that I am right now. But it just was like, it was a lot. It was so much. And when God delivered me from that job, it came in the form of being laid off. And when I was laid off, prior to that, I was kind of like gathering evidence and building a case to file a discrimination suit, a discrimination claim towards them. And I was laid off, and I was so, oh my gosh, I could have jumped out of my skin. I was so thankful to be released, because everything was trying to get me to quit the job myself, and I knew that God did not want me to do that, that he wanted me to leave when he ordained for me to leave. So just like being steadfast amidst all that warfare, there's no way I could have done that without God. I was fasting and praying like so much that year. It's unreal. But yeah, when he released me, It came in the form of being laid off. And so I remember, the conversation with my manager and how she was mentioning that she needed for me to sign a document and she was going to be giving me severance pay. And I had experienced receiving severance pay from my old job during the time that we're not supposed to talk about. And, you know, receiving that from them, but I had been working at that job for, I believe, either 4 or 5 years. So it didn't make sense. I was working at a job for 5 months and you're going to give me severance pay. And so when I read through the document that she wanted for me to sign before they were to release this to me, I read the document and it said that it basically was like signing an NDA saying that all of the events, that everything that I had experienced on that job, that I could not talk about it, that I couldn't file, I couldn't have, or already have, or will be going to file a discrimination claim, or I can't think of a better word than this. I'll put it in the captions, but mistreatment claim towards my manager and towards the people at that workplace. And so when I read it, and it basically was like an NDA, I was like, oh my God, wow, like it was like the first real acknowledgement of them on their part of what they had done to me. And it was like, I wouldn't wish it on my bitterest enemy. Like, no one should ever be treated the way that they treated me. It was incredible. I could not believe like you could treat people like this. And I wasn't the only one experiencing the things I was experiencing. There was someone else who was there at the time who was going through it too, who was experiencing it too. And she was kind of blinded to how my manager was completely behind much of it. But it started at the top. Like, it started at the top, and it was just incredible that in this day and age people can treat other human beings the way that they do, and they expect them to show up back to work and like nothing happened. I would say, like, the if I had to describe it, like, and I know like it was a spirit behind the racism that I experienced there, the racism that I experienced at the art studio that I was at as well. But it's a spirit behind that. But I would say that it was like a modern day antebellum environment, that workplace. Like, yeah. That's if I had to describe it. Um, yeah, that was insane. Wow. And God pulled me through. I remember the day that I was laid off. I was, walking around the area, because that area is so, in Brooklyn, is so beautiful. And I was walking around the area near my job, um, and I was just walking with God and talking to Him. There were these books that I found, like someone had put on a porch, that I picked up, and it was just a really lovely like prayer walk with Him, and it almost like felt like Him like kind of serenading me and just walking with me and talking with me, and just I could feel His peace all over me. I could feel His love all over me, and and just times like that, even with everything that had happened, this moments like that, like I would have moments like that every day, some days, and it was incredible to go from one very hard, terrible moment, or out several hours, to like these beautiful moments with the Lord. And even like during those moments, even when I was there, like feeling Him there with me, and counseling me, and just feeling his peace over me and his grace over me. It was just beautiful, just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I could feel myself going deeper in him. And shortly after that, so that happened in July. Um, so, normally people go and they file unemployment after they're laid off or let go or whatever, happens with a job. So I went ahead and did that. And I found out about this self employment program through Department of Labor. And, a few weeks or like a month or two prior to me being laid off, God had told me that he was going to have me start a business, that he was training me to be an entrepreneur, and that no longer was I going to work for companies or anything else. I was going to be his employee. So, that was like a huge revelation. And I was like, okay, God, like I had heard of people who were doing this. I, was watching people on YouTube who were doing this, and, incredible things for God, and just allowing him to move them. I never thought of me, being one of those people. And yeah, that was incredible. So, that, I want to say that was like sometime in maybe early June where he told me this. And then fast forward to me being let go in July. And, I would say like maybe about mid-July, early August is when I found out about that self-employment program. So it was like God was just, the dots were just lining up. He was just lining everything up. So you had to apply for this program, and it was basically like the same, you're receiving the same amount that you're receiving for your unemployment, but the program runs alongside your unemployment. So it's basically like a structure for you to develop your business on a time frame. So there's forms that you have to fill out. You have to get a business counselor, like, all of these things, but it's structured in a way for you to build your business. And so you have to apply for it right away, because I think it takes like a month for you to receive notice that you're even admitted into the program. And then you go from there. So at the time, like, God was taking me back to my family, which was crazy because, mind you, I've been laid off. I have some savings, but like, it's gonna run out. And then God just told me that I can't work for anyone else. So that means that I'm not applying for any jobs like I was before. So so for me, being his employee looked like him just giving me things to do every single day. And part of that was me flying back to Georgia, or flying back to North Carolina to be with my aunt, and just traveling. And I traveled more that year, before and after I was laid off, than I think I'd ever had in the past couple of years, which was kind of crazy. But God completely provided for me. I didn't need to ask anyone for any help, any funds, like, to travel or anything like that. He supernaturally provided everything for me, whether that was through just like different, like, I remember I had received like some kind of coupon, or like not a rebate, but just like some amount off of a flight, because my flight had been so delayed a few years prior to that. And then I was using that for my flight. And then I had these miles that I had saved up that I thought would have gone away, because the whole thing with, it's a whole other story. But anyway, I was able to receive those miles. And it's just like things that I shouldn't have been able to have, or it would have, been used up. Um, but I had it, and or this thing that I completely didn't know about, or came up into my email when I was about to go on a flight, and it was for a cheaper flight or a free flight, or just like just so many different things that I was able to go back and forth and with ease. And I was just like, wow, God, I can't believe that this is happening right now. But yeah, it happened. um, yeah, I just, when I think about it, uh, because in August I went, um, I had the time now. My aunt had been asking me to come and see her, and I wasn't sure because of everything that was happening at work and everything. I didn't want to give her a definite yes, and then all of a sudden I had the time because I was laid off, so I could. And so I went back and I traveled with her, and um, God ended up having me fast um, my first few days when I was there, and that one was it was very hard because that one was an Esther fast, no food and no water for 3 days, and so that was rough. But the day before I went on the flight, I could feel him tell me to do this, and I was laying on a beach just in basking in the glow of the Lord on a beautiful August day, and the things that he was showing me that whole trip, like just the ways that he was talking to me, he was being so like creative in how he was like placing things on my heart and revealing things to me. And the very next day I was in North Carolina with my aunt, and I was fasting, and so it was just one thing to the next. Like I just had to go with the flow. Sorry, like there's someone outside playing music from their car, and yeah, anyway, don't mind the sounds. But yeah, there was just like, when I just think about, oh my gosh, how much he moved was incredible. And so, this video is getting pretty long, so I'm probably gonna do two. This is gonna be like a two-part video, but so I might end it here. But anyway, yeah, just join me for the next one wherever I end up editing and